I used to think that if I told people that I was bad, they'd think I was bad. But then I sort of realized it's okay, as long as you got better, right? But it's okay to say you used to struggle. In my opinion, I think it's okay to say, it's better to say you used to struggle as long as you've overcome that struggle there. Because I think that's the powerful side of things, is the journey. Without that sort of beginning vulnerable side of it, it's just not as powerful of a story. That's how I look at that.
Well, friends, welcome back to another episode. It is my last recording of the day. You know, I've been batching some incredible interviews for the month of December, and I am thrilled to have my friend Jono here today for a great conversation, sharing his signature story. Jono, welcome to the show, my friend.
No, thank you, Heather. I'm super excited. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm in Australia, as your listeners might be able to tell by the accent. So I'm a day in front. So it's 8 a.m. Saturday morning. This is usually my gym time, but I stuffed up my times and booked this podcast instead. So thank you. It means I didn't have to go to the gym today. So thank you, Heather.
I feel so honored. And also kind of like we're time traveling. Guys, Jono's calling from the future.
Do you want to know who won the game last night, Heather? I can let you know who won the Friday night football.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. So for those who follow along with me online, I shared I was able to be on Jono's podcast it's a couple months ago now, which was such a fun conversation. And now tables have turned. Let's take a moment and formally introduce those for you. So I'm going to give us the setup of how I met you. I got a Facebook message from you. This was months ago. And I'll set this up by saying, we all get a lot of cold messages from people online, right? Trying to like sneakily send us into some kind of pitch. And yours stood out to me because it was very much around, hey, I really think that what you have to say, you'd be very welcome in this community and they would benefit so much from what you have to offer. Feel free to come introduce yourself, offer if you have a freebie. You were very much welcoming and like wanting me to succeed inside your Facebook group. And I was very like, whoa, this is abnormal. So I went in your group, kind of checking out what this guy's doing. And you have the most incredible, dynamic, service-driven community. And out of the gate, I was just very, very impressed. So that was my intro to you. And you have definitely delivered and upheld that first impression that you are not a like schmucky, that sounds funny. But you're not peddling anything on, right? Like you're genuinely created this business to help people. And today we're going to discover a little bit more around what motivated that. But you have an incredible community online. Why don't you give us the official who you are and what you do?
Yes. Thank you for those kind words, by the way. It's usually and they were actually authentic. Usually I write the bio and the person just reads it out, but that was actually written by you. So thank you for that, Heather. So in a nutshell, I do a few different things. I run two businesses. My main business, let's call it my main business, is fitness education online. That's where it's an online course business where I help fitness professionals grow their fitness business. And we'll talk about that a bit later in the podcast, but that's essentially what I do there. That's a really successful business. That generates about $1 million a year in online course sales. So good revenue, very little time involved because it's online courses. So that's great. And it got to the point where a lot of people started to ask me, hey, Jono, you're good at this fitness stuff. That's great. But how are you making $1 million a year selling online courses? That's what we really want to know. And I was like, okay, maybe there's something in there. So I've recently created a new business, leveraging a lot of that, a new Facebook group that I created, the Course Creator Community Facebook group. And that's attached to a membership site as well. And in that membership, I essentially teach course creators how to sell a heap of courses. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. And it's great too. I just have to say also, your marketing director, she's doing a phenomenal job. The graphics and just the information that you share just in your free channels on social, and you have your podcast. It really is refreshing. It doesn't feel, I think a lot of times when people start these communities, it's very clear right out of the gate that their content is a rabbit hole down to pay me money. And from your brand, the reason why I'm very much a fan of it is it's very much, let me help today's course creators. Let me help them not make the mistakes. Let me help them be successful. And hey, by the way, if you want to go deeper, we have great tools and resources, but it doesn't scream you have to buy to know the secret. Like, I just love that. Was that really intentional when you designed this business?
100%. So I'll share a couple things in there, and this will be good tips for anyone that's got a Facebook group. So my, I guess, philosophy with the Facebook group, and also my life philosophy, is I want to work as little as possible. That's a big thing for me, right? I like hard work. Don't get me wrong, but I want to work smartly and be leveraged. So in my Facebook group, I ideally want to post as little as possible. That's my goal, right? And the sign of a good Facebook group for me, and actually that is the sign of a good Facebook group for me. If you go into a Facebook group and it's just the admin that's posting, it's not really a community. It's just a guy trying to sell you something or a woman trying to sell you something, right? Yeah. So I have a bit of a different take on it. The angle that I want my community to be is I want my members to be posting more than me. I want my members to be answering those questions more than me, because that's, in my opinion, where the value of the community is. It's not what I post. That's not the value, because you can get that anyway. Go on YouTube and find that or whatever, right? I want my group to be better than Google. I want someone to be like, right, I got a question about creating a course. I can either go on Google and YouTube and find the answer, or I can make a post in Jono's Facebook group. And they can do the Google and YouTube stuff, whatever. The limitation with that is it's not really two-way. It's like, okay, I'll go and read a blog and get some info. That's great. The advantage of a Facebook group is someone will, post the question on there. And if the Facebook group is good, they'll get 5, 10, 15, 20 different answers. And then that original poster can make a choice. Okay, well, that person's just trying to sell me something, so I'll skip that. Ooh, that looks like a genuine comment. I'll read that. This person is trying to sell me something, but it looks good. I might buy into that. It's like they've got more choices there. That's what I want my group to be like. And then it's still easier for me. And if someone's wondering, well, Jono, how do you make money? Well, yeah, I'll still comment and say, look, here's the answer, but I can help you as well. But it's not driven by that there. So that's my philosophy. And also, even from day one creating the group, that's what I wanted. It's not like, how can I create a group and get me to post all the time? How can I create a group? How can I create a community where people are posting and people are replying to those? And that's probably a conversation for another day, but I've got about 9 or 10 specific strategies that I use to make sure that group is engaging. And we can speak about that if you want. That's more like a Facebook, how to grow your Facebook group. Sort of.
I love though that you did that. It reminds me of, I use metaphors and analogies all the time. It reminds me of if you're hosting a gathering, more of a potluck, like what everybody brings something, right? Where maybe you as the host, you make the main dish, but then you have people bring salads and desserts and fruits and drinks and all these things where we contribute to the table to eat together. And where you still maybe have the main entree, right? Which is a piece of it, but everybody else is contributing to the experience of that dinner, or in this case, the community. And it's very refreshing. I think a lot of people think that they would love that to happen, but they just hope and pray that other people will engage. It's just very beautiful what you've done. But one of the things that I really appreciated after you and I spoke on your podcast, you had reached out and said, hey, I know you talk a lot about obviously speaking, but the idea of the storytelling piece and really having a story to tell for the benefit of your audience. You have one of those and you're like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if maybe we talked on your podcast about my signature story and how I infuse it into my business? So let's go straight into there, because I'm sure you and I can talk for hours on all of this. But why don't you give your story? Why don't we just dive into it? Give a little bit of your story. You mentioned you have a fitness company. Tell us your story, and then let's start digging into it from there.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Let me think if I should I won't even preface it. I'll tell the story and then we can expand on it later, because I think it'll make sense regardless. Even if you're not a course creator, not a fitness person, you'll hear the story and then you'll sort of get the angle that I'm going at with it, right?
Yes. Once upon a time, everybody pull out your little nighty blanket. Here we go.
Okay. So my background, we've touched on it. I was a personal trainer, right? Like most personal trainers, when you start off, you start working in a gym. And usually you do the bad jobs in the gym. I'm sure it's the same in America as well. You see the trainers when they're starting off, instead of actually training people, they're cleaning the treadmills. They're, doing the bathroom checks. They're restocking the soda machines, doing all the things that people don't want to do. I remember even once I had to clip the carpet hairs. I had to get a pair of scissors and clip the carpet hairs through there. So not ideal. And an opportunity came up for me to run a local bootcamp franchise. And the ad got me. It was an ad and it was like, hey, most of our trainers make $70,000 a year working 10 hours a day or something like that. And I'm like, whoa, I'm not making $70,000. I'm making half of that at the moment. And I'm working, double that. I got to go for this thing. So applied for the job and somehow I managed to get it. I think I lied on my resume or something because I managed to get this dream job. But the down point was I wasn't very good at it. So this bootcamp franchise, Heather, was the opportunity. There were 75 bootcamp locations for this franchise all over Australia and New Zealand. And you were ranked on how good you were. 1 being the best, 75 being the worst. Take a guess. What do you think I was ranked, Heather, after my first year?
I mean, I think I know how the setup works, that you were definitely number 79. Oh.
Pretty much, right? I was 75, dead last, right? So, and not good for the confidence because I knew 74. 74 was not a good trainer. So the fact that they were beating me wasn't great for my confidence. And we had to go to a convention at the end of the year with all different 75 bootcamp instructors. And I didn't want to go because I was the worst trainer there. Who wants to go and hang around with 75 people better than you, right? And it got worse though, because it's not like, it wasn't a confidence thing. I didn't think I was the worst trainer there. It was statistically proven I was the worst trainer there. I was 75 out of 75.
Yeah, this wasn't like an imposter syndrome thing in your head. The facts actually showed you.
Exactly. I would log on to the company dashboard and there was a pie chart telling me how bad I was. That's how you know you're bad at what you do. If there's a pie chart telling you that you suck. But anyway, so I bit the bullet and went to this convention because I knew if I didn't go, they'd probably fire me. If I did go, maybe they'd fire me, but maybe they wouldn't. So let me put it in. And I should preface as well, I loved what I did. I really liked it. It was fun. It was good opportunity. I just wasn't good at it. So had to go to this convention. And had to go to this convention and had a meeting with the franchise owners straight off the bat. There was a couple that owned the franchise. And they were like, Jono, you're coming 75th out of 75. What's going on? And I was like, look, it's not my fault. It's the area that I'm in. It's so competitive. There's a gym on every corner. There's 24-hour gyms. There's budget gyms. There's people that aren't even qualified being personal trainers, training people. There's just so much competition. And I was like, also, it's the marketing. You guys are meant to be doing my marketing, right? All these leads you're getting me, none of them are signing up. And also, the other thing, it's the weather. I'm here in Sydney. It's not the Gold Coast in Queensland. Like it rains in Sydney. Who's going to go and train in the outdoors in a park in winter in Sydney? No one's going to do that. And they were like, all right, Jono, we got some good news and we got some bad news. The bad news is as a bootcamp instructor, you suck. You're coming 75th. You've seen the pie chart. The good news is that you can actually do something about it. Because at the moment, you're not great at what you do, but you're sitting here blaming everybody else but yourself. Maybe it's not the competition's fault that you suck. Maybe it's your fault you haven't done enough to be better than the competition. What upskilling have you done? And I was like, well, I get my continuing education courses every year. They're like, Johnny, that's the bare minimum. Like that you've got to do that just to stay in the industry. Of course, if you do the bare minimum, you're going to be dead last. What do you expect? And they're like, the marketing. Okay. Is it our marketing that's not great? Or is it that you don't know your sales skills aren't great? What sales books have you read? What business coaches have you hired? And I was like, oh, I got to do that stuff as well. And they're like, and also, if our marketing is so bad, why don't you go out and do some of your own marketing? And I was like, never thought of that. And they're like, also the weather. They go, Jono, you're blaming the weather? You can go out and hire a school hall for $20. You can solve your biggest problem for $20, but you're too busy sitting here feeling sorry for yourself and blaming everybody else. And I was like, oof, it's a good point. And they were like, look, Jono, your position's safe. We're not going to fire you. But what we want you to do for the next year is just take 100% accountability and responsibility for your business. If something comes up, don't blame someone else. Go and do something about it. Just do that for 12 months, come back in 12 months' time, and let's see what happens. So that's what I did, right? I'd look at a situation and I'd be like, okay, cool. Well, what am I going to do to get better? First thing I need to do is a course. Did a course on how to be a better personal trainer. As a result, got a bit better. Did the next course. And in a nutshell, in a year, I read books, I watched YouTube videos, blogs, workshops, online courses, conventions, mentors, attended other trainer sessions, did a whole heap of little things. But the overarching principle was I just took responsibility and accountability for it. Came back 12 months later. Now, Heather, same convention. What do you think I was ranked out of 75 now?
Well, I mean, the Goldilocks story would be the swinging the other way, right? Like, were you in the top 10?
Number one, Heather. Number one, right? So, and that sort of fired me up. I was like, all right, cool. You know, if you actually take responsibility and upskill, you actually get better. Surprise, surprise. So that was really good. And I kept going from there, opened up another location, similar result, and then kept getting similar results. That I was always ranked number one in the space. And then as a result of that, other trainers started to ask me because they knew me when I was 75. And they're like, man, in a year or two, this guy's gone from 75 to 1 and he's got all these locations, all these clients. Jono, what did you do? What sales did you do? What marketing did you do? What workouts did you do? What retention did you do? And I would originally try and send them in different ways. Oh, well, simple. I just did these 20 courses, read these 50 books and listened to these 20 podcasts. Just go and do that. And they're like, is there like a shortcut or something? And that's what got me to create my first course at Fitness Education Online, which was essentially how to create or how to run a successful bootcamp. And that's how Fitness Education Online started. And then here I am today, fast forward 7 or 8 years later, and about 40 courses in that business, about $1 million a year. And then essentially that's what I've done at the course creator community as well, right? It's like, all right, cool. With that earlier business, it was like, all right, now no longer am I just training people. Now I'm training the trainers. Now, same thing with the course creator community. Now I'm no longer training the trainers. I'm training the people that want to create the online courses. So that's my story in a nutshell. How did I go, Heather?
Yeah, you did great. You did great. I'm curious, when you think about your story, how many years did it really take you to reflect back and be able to talk about it in a way that was concise?
Oh, how many years to craft that story?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a good question. It was more, to be honest, more about the upskilling that I did. So I did 2 specific programs. I did one program. I can't remember the name of it. It was an Australian guy, Sam Cawthorn. He's like one of the big speakers over here. I went to an event, a free workshop, and the ones where there's multiple speakers, they give a bit of a speech and then give a bit of a pitch at the end.
Yeah.
He did that, and I was like, I need this. I knew I was missing a story. I didn't know how to craft it. So I saw the way, because his speech was on probably similar to what you do, right? How to craft a signature talk. And he was just so good at it. I'm like, man, that signature talk is awesome.
I want to be good too.
Yeah, exactly. Because the other speakers may have had good style, how to make money in property and, how to make money online, but they weren't good speakers. And it was just something that attracted me to this guy because he was a good speaker. And it was so authentic because he's a speaker who's selling a course on how to be a good speaker. And he was a good speaker. So I'm like, just take my money. It was about 5,000 Australian dollars for a weekend course. But probably one of the best investments I made. And at the time, it was an interesting time. But it's for a weekend course. It's not chump change, right? It's a bit of money there.
Well, I'm just going to say, man, my program is half of that, and you get me for an entire year.
Exactly. And look, I think technically I got them for the year, but you don't get it. It's like some online stuff that they never check or whatever. The major part is the 3-day boot camp. And that was great for a few different reasons. It was like I had a bit of a story that I crafted up there. And I actually thought it was pretty good, to be honest, because I'll do a few Facebook Lives, that sort of thing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty good at this thing here. And then I went up and gave my thing. And then off the bat, they're like, here's like 10 things you could do better to make that story better. And I'm like, okay, wow, this is good. And also in that room, there were probably about 20 other people in that room as well. And they would do the same thing. And you would listen to each person speak. And it was good. It was good and bad. It's kind of like, there's 20 other people here. I'm not getting a lot of one-on-one time, but it was also good because you could hear 20 other people's stories and you could get feedback from them as well. So that really helped me there. I can't remember how long into, maybe a year or two, but it wasn't like I got better myself. It's maybe a little bit I got better myself, but without professional help, it would have never sounded that good there.
Yeah.
I also invested in a professional comedian, believe it or not, from Las Vegas, Matt Kazam, because I wanted to make my story funnier. And it wasn't just for crafting that story. Like there's a few different stories and things as well. But that really helped as well. That was about a year or two later. And the story with that, I had a mentor, American guy, AJ Mirzad. I'm not sure if anyone here knows him. So I did one of his programs, back in 2014 or something, and it was okay. Did another one of his programs in like 2016, 2017. And it was just so much funnier. I was cracking up, and it made me want to listen to his online course more, because I'm like, hey, even if I don't learn something, at least it's fun and at least it's not boring and dry. So I hit him up and I'm like, AJ, you're so much funnier. How did you get funnier? He's like, well, it's quite simple. I just paid this guy, Matt Kazam, $5,000, and he taught me how to make my stuff funnier. So I did the same thing there with Matt Kazam, paid him and improved that. And I also did Toastmasters. You have Toastmasters in USA, right?
Yep.
Yeah. That was okay. That's kind of like, I don't want to rubbish it, but I'd say it's at the entry level. Maybe you don't have $5,000 or $2,000 to pay Heather. Maybe you're just starting off. I think Toastmasters is a good start point there. They'll get you to a certain point, and then you can reach out to a Heather or someone like that. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I think it was more.
You do. I think it's one of those things that I think sounds so silly when we say it out loud, but what I see happen a lot from business owners is they see other people on stage share your story, right? And they're like, man, they have such a good story. My story sucks. And they immediately compare their inability to craft a message, thinking like, oh, it's so easy for you to do it. Or the idea of, right, you get up and give a big talk. I'm sure you have a lot of experience speaking in some capacity, whether it's virtual or in person. They see you do it and they think, man, like there's something wrong with me, because they go and open their mouths and the stories don't come out, or they're not funny, or whatever else, right? And what you just brought out so clearly is the people who are really good at it, they didn't get there by chance. I mean, to some extent we do, right? Especially those of us who just do a lot of speaking. For a decade, I did a ton of speaking on the road, but I didn't get better just because I got on stages. I studied psychology. I studied speaking. I studied hand gestures. I studied audience interactions. You study to get better at the skill of communication. And I think a lot of people don't think about that. They just think communication, it just happens. So talk a little bit more about your evolution just with speaking and communication in general, because I think that is a skill that is so masterful and so essential to this online space. But what's that been like, and what do you notice?
Oh, okay. Such a good question. So I guess the best way I can answer this is that it's a learnable skill. So similar to what you said, and actually give a bit of background. I used to be like, I remember still at university, I had to give a 5-minute talk or something. And I could barely do it. My face would go red. I would stutter. I was so nervous. And I just used to think, some people are naturally good at this sort of stuff. Some people aren't. I'm one of the person that's not naturally good at it. So it is what it is, right? Then I can't remember what it was. I think I went to like a Tony Robbins convention or something. And he speaks about something, I can't remember the exact wording, but it's something like, you've got your comfort zone and you should always just do something a little bit out of it. You don't need to go and bungee jump or something if you're an introvert, but do something that's just a little bit out of it. And then what happens is that thing, once you master that thing, it's no longer as scary, right? And then you just move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So it's like, I used to be super scared of that sort of thing. And even going back to AJ Mirzad, one of the things I had to do in his program was do like a video on Facebook. It was the title had to be My Story, right? And share something, vulnerable or whatever it is. And it was like the scariest thing ever. It was like, oh man, I kept putting it off, it was like, I'll do it next week. Then I'm like, oh, it's Tuesday. I can't do it at the end of the week. I'm gonna have to wait till next Monday to post it, right? So I kept putting it off and off. And this was before live videos even existed. So it wasn't even a live, it was a pre-recorded one. I can't imagine, I probably never would have done it if it was live. But anyways, it was a pre-recorded one. And then I took it on whatever it was, and then I still waited even longer because I think I took it on Monday. I'm like, well, now it's Monday night. You got to post it Monday morning, right? So I waited like a full week to post it again. Posted it. It was the scariest thing ever. I remember I took a nap straight away. It's like I posted it and then I just turned all my social media off, because people are going to laugh at me and, I'm going to be an idiot and all this. So just turned everything off, took a nap, woke up half an hour later or whatever. And I'm like, all right, let's check this. I was so nerve wracking. And then I checked it and I had like more likes than I've ever got in my life. You know, I can't remember the number, but there were hundreds or likes and comments, and people were messaging me. It wasn't that exact story that I shared. It was a completely different story, to be honest, back then. But it was just that was one thing that really got me out of my comfort zone there, and that kind of really opened it up. I was like, oh, okay, it's not that hard to post videos and that sort of thing. And then that also opened up to face-to-face speaking events. So that was the next thing that sort of got me nervous, because I progressed in my career, and then I got asked to speak at like the National Fitness Convention in Australia and in New Zealand as well. And that was sort of a good springboard because I was doing some online stuff there. But that's also what motivated me to reach out to some of these other people as well, because I was like, all right, if I'm going to be speaking, I know it's not just about the content that I'm going to deliver. I've got to make it look enjoyable as well. And I think it was a bit of a scared thing as well, whereas like, well, even if my content isn't great, actually, no, yeah, I think this is exactly what I was thinking. Even if my content isn't great, if I'm a good speaker, it's still going to look okay. Because I think I heard someone else and I'm like, yeah, their content wasn't that good, but I still liked them. And it was still a good talk, even though their content wasn't good. So I was like, what if I can hit both of those things? If I can be a good speaker and I can give good content as well, then it's going to be a better experience all around. So there's that there. And it's just, I think that the biggest thing for me is just that it's a learnable skill in terms of both communication and presenting as well. And it's like, that's probably the best I can get. It's like if you look at someone and they're like, oh, that person's just a great speaker, you can get to that. It's no different to weight loss. You want to lose some weight, just go to the gym and, and lose whatever it is you want to learn. Like it can be done. It can be improved. That's the best. And look, there may be some people that are naturally good. There may be some people that they're just great communicators and, they can just get up on stage and they're super confident and whatever it is. Sure. I'm sure there's people like that as well. But it's not saying that because you're naturally like that, you're never going to be like that. You can always, it's a learnable skill.
Yeah. And the piece when you said it's like, it takes to get to be uncomfortable, right? Like that, I think it's actually what I see oftentimes is people who actually are natural with speaking, right? They like being in front of groups. They have natural speaking. I actually find those people come seek me out intentionally because they have this aha moment of going, whoa, I've gotten this far with my natural talent and I have no problem with this, but they see this picture for where they want to take their business and they see the professional level storytellers and the professional level people, and they start freaking out a little bit in their head because their identity has always been, I'm natural in front of an audience. I'm really good in front of an audience. I'm a good speaker, which was great if you worked back in corporate and you were a trainer or led a workshop or you did this, like, I hate to say this because I don't want to downplay it, but the amateur level stuff. When you look ahead, though, they look ahead at their goals and be like, I'm not good enough, but they don't want to admit it out loud. And they don't quite know what the difference is. And they feel like they're not good enough to get to that next level. And it's just, it breaks my heart, but it's just not true. It is the skill piece and uncovering what those pieces are. The storytelling angle that we talked about today, I love that you said your internal thought, right? Around how you could have good content. And as long as you're a good speaker, right, it'll elevate it. What I hear a lot of people say, I'm curious your thoughts around this. I hear a lot of people, they struggle because they go, I know I have really, really, really good content, but people aren't really receiving it, or it's coming across too boring, or like people aren't really paying attention. Do you have any advice for someone who has great content, but they don't see themselves as a dynamic or charismatic style performer?
Okay, cool. So I think there's a couple of things there, right? I think like in today's world, it's got to be engaging, even more so online, still in person, because in person, if I go to a convention and the speaker's boring, I just get my phone out, start scrolling, I know there's some people that are probably more respectful than me and we'll give that person respect either way. But I think a lot of people are also like me where you just keep scrolling, right? And then especially on social media as well, you got a couple seconds to get attention, right? And I remember I was speaking to a trainer. They were like, Jono, what do you think? I did this live video. What do you think of what I did at the 7-minute mark? And I'm like, I don't know how to tell you this, but no one's watching 7 minutes of that there, right? So I think it's important to understand that it's not just about your content, right? You have the best content in the world. If it's not presented in a engaging way, like it's not going to, like people aren't going to watch it, people aren't going to engage in it, right? So I think step number one is just acknowledging that. It's like, all right, cool. I've got this great content, but if I'm posting and it's not engaging, okay, maybe it's the way I'm presenting it there. And I guess the tip I would get there is just get better at it. And it's like, get better. Yeah, my tip would be get better at it with help and practice as well. Because it's kind of like you can keep doing it and you might get better just by learning. You might watch it because the advantage of video as well is you can watch it back. And a lot of people don't. I never used to because I was too embarrassed to watch it back, right? But it's such an advantage. You do a video, you watch it back, and you're like, no wonder nobody liked that, right? I could have done this better. I could have done that better. But yeah, that would be my advice. I think it's not just about the content. It's got to be engaging. Yeah. And I just think it's a learnable skill. I mean, you got two options. It's kind of like, okay, it's not engaging at the moment, so you just never post and get it out there. Okay, great, but you're not going to be too successful there, right? Or it's like, okay, it's not engaging at the moment. What can I do to make it more engaging? How can I study that skill there? That would be my tip.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. And I think when we think about like that person, we're listening, let's say somebody has a digital course right now, or they're a coach and they have a group program and they're thinking like, oh, I see myself at that level. However, the idea of practicing out loud or watching their own recording and like that terrifies them. Or I have a lot of people that come into my world and they actually outwardly tell me on our sales call, they're like, I hate getting feedback, which makes me giggle because I know I'm like, I get it. Like we hate, like, because we're our own worst critics. So we kind of hate it when somebody else points it out. But there comes this point where you have to get over your own ego and your own whatever mess that you're in, and just acknowledge that the difference between the people who are playing at the level you're at right now and the people who are making $1 million a year like you with digital courses, the people who are able to say, I know that I'm really good, but also to get better, I have to get really uncomfortable, which means I have to learn things that I don't know and get that feedback. So did you ever experience that? You mentioned that in that really rough feedback you got around taking personal accountability for those external situations. Was that where that lesson was learned, or have you had to learn that many times over?
No, to be honest, that was just ingrained in me so much at that one conversation there, because it's like, let me think how to explain this. So yeah, before that, it was kind of like, so I guess one way to look at it, the feedback's a good one. So I used to be very much like that. I used to hate feedback. Now I love it. And like let's go to my online courses. Every single person that completes it has to fill out feedback if they want to fill out the assessment, and if they want their credits or whatever, they need to do the assessment, right? I love it. And the feedback is essentially this: give this course a score out of 0 to 10, or give a score out of 1 to 10. 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. All right. There's a positive question before as well. What did you like most? So it's not just all, constructive criticism. There's what did you like most? What would you rate it out of on a scale of 1 to 10? The next question, if it's less than a 10, what could I have done better to make it a 10? Right. I don't care what number they give me. I'm actually disappointed with a 10 because it means I can't get better. If they give me a 10, damn it, I can't get better and improve myself. I don't care whether they give me a 1 or whether they give me a 9. I can't go back in time and change their experience now, but I can change it for the future people. So whatever that person says, and they'll give some feedback, I will go and add that feedback into the course, providing it doesn't make it detrimental for something else. If someone's like, well, I hated module 1, you should get rid of that, but everyone loves module 1, I'm going to keep it there. But if it's like, oh, you should have had this in there, or you could have done this differently, or, it was too much video, there wasn't enough, whatever it is, I'll go back and fix it up. So I look at feedback like very positive now. And one of my favorite quotes is, I never fail. I either win or I learn. So I look at feedback like that as well. It's just an opportunity. Either I won and got the 10, or it's an opportunity to learn, which I like even more than winning and getting the 10. So I love that there. But yeah, for me, it was just that story was so that experience was so powerful, because the exact reason, because if we go back to, let's go back to that story from the start, right? I kind of had two choices. I could have either kept blaming everybody else, which isn't wrong. It's not wrong. Everything I said there was right. There was weather, there was competition, there was their leads weren't converting, like everything I said there was right. But if I go in there with that ego, no, I'm a really good personal trainer, it's everyone else's fault, that's fine. I might feel better about myself, but I'm not going to be very successful. The flip side to it is, and it's not a poor me. Like if I could even go back in time now, it just would have been like, right, I'm not the best personal trainer in the world yet. So what have I got to do to be the best personal trainer in the world? I got to get better at what I do. And I think like at any level, and Tony Robbins has another good quote, you're either, something along the lines of, you're either growing or you're dying. There's no middle ground there, right? It's like if you get complacent, you're going to naturally drop down because other people are going to jump you up there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So and for me, it's just like it's just being humble. It's like it's great to be confident. You know, hey, I think I'm great at what I do, but I'm not perfect. I can always get better. So that's the way I look at it. No matter where I am on that scale, you know, if we go back to that story and I'm 75th out of 75, great. Hey, I'm 75th out of 75. You know, I'm not going to get depressed and upset and poor me, but I'm also not going to blame everyone else. I'm currently 75, but I'm not always going to be 75. That's the key I look at it. It's just like, it's kind of irrelevant where I am at the moment. It's just what can I do to get better on that scale, whether I was 75th or whether I was 30, whether I was, even when I was number one. Okay, what can I do to get better? How can I open up another location? How can I get 1 and 2? That's the way I look at it there. So yeah, it's just that one story was so, what I'd encourage for the listeners is just like, be confident. I'm all for being confident and being of your craft and you know, being confident and being really good at your craft. It's just taking that extra level of responsibility. If you're not where you want to be, just don't, if you can blame everyone else, that's fine, but you're going to stay where you are. So if you want to stay where you are, great. Blame everyone else. You might even drop a little bit as well. But if you want to get better, take responsibility.
Yeah. Such a beautiful example pinned out in that. I mean, the thing that I think of, I was thinking of ways to exemplify this, the Tony Robbins quote, right? If you're not growing, you're dying. I've heard that many times over. The whole thing that you're talking about here is this future orientation. Is what we want to do when we're persuading other people, is what we need to do is change the vantage point to in the future. Because I think so oftentimes people are focused on the past, what went wrong, how do we fix, or they're nitpicking our course, they're nitpicking like feedbacks about the past. And people like to stew in the past. They like to talk about what's wrong in the industry, what other people are doing wrong. It's all very past driven. And what I find is when you're trying to create a connection point with your audience, or you're trying to figure out a reason or motivation to change, to be able to get uncomfortable, you have to change the orientation to the future vantage point. So like, I think this is really powerful. You do this really well in your signature story, by the way. You're exemplifying that future desire that you want, and you're tapping to that with the audience who's listening. Every person knows how to dream. They like the idea of being better than they were yesterday. People tap into that. So, I mean, this is branching into a few thoughts I have here. But one, with the whole idea of discomfort and being uncomfortable with feedback, it's because you're living in the past, not the future. So change the vantage point. I love that you say that scoring thing is around, it's equipping you to do better in the future. It has nothing to do with your past course, right?
Give me a 1. I don't care. It doesn't affect me. You're great. You gave me a 1. Cool. Now I can make sure here's 9 different things I can do better so that I'm never going to get a 1 again. Great.
Yeah. And it's this idea, a weird analogy I'll use is the concept of inflation. They talk about like with economies, right? The value of money, there's always this inflation happening. I like to think about this in the economic system of skill set. Like if we look in the online space with digital courses or with speaking or whatever else, there is inflation happening where people are becoming more sophisticated as buyers, more sophisticated as tech users, more sophisticated as Facebook browsers. Our sophistication level is rising over and over again. And so just in common sense thinking, when you were talking about if you're not growing, you're dying, it's 100% true. Because if you were to operate at the same level marketing wise or communication wise as you did last year, today's market is being more sophisticated. So there becomes this necessity that we have to continue to grow, which means we have to explore these things. So anyways, those are all the random things I have that came to mind as you were saying that. It's so true. And it's not just random personal development speak. It is actually how businesses grow. And you've exemplified that in your journey for sure.
Yep. Agree.
Okay, I want to hear from you with a signature story. Tell me a little bit about how you use it in your business.
Yes. Okay. So I use it in both businesses now, right? So I use it in fitness education online. It's essentially my sales pitch as well.
Yeah.
So whenever I'm running a and I use it little places here at Facebook Lives, podcast guests, if I get to speak at events, like whatever it is, it always starts with that. And then I sort of get to a sales pitch. But the main one is essentially in a webinar. So if I'm running a webinar, it starts with that story there. And it's kind of like, it's good for a webinar because without trying to sound too salesy, I'm not really giving any tips, if that makes sense. It's kind of like that story. It's like, it's a motivating story. Someone's like, well, this idiot was 75th and he can do it, like.
So can I.
It's like, exactly. Yeah. And then I also like what I expand out in a webinar is that middle bit. Here I just sort of yada, yada. So I did a whole heap of courses, seminars, blah, 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 blah. I expand that out a bit, which is essentially right. So, the things I had to learn was sales and marketing, or, was marketing. I had to learn how to get lead gen. So I did a whole heap of courses. Some of them sucked, some of them were good, but now I'm really, really good at lead gen, Then I had to learn sales, and I had to do all this different stuff on sales, and then I had to learn the retention. I had to do all this different stuff on retention. And then when it gets to the sell at the end, so anyway, hey, I've got this course that covers sales, covers marketing, covers retention. So as people are sort of going through the webinar, they're okay, cool. I got to make sure I study marketing. Let me go and read all these books and do all these different courses. Okay, then I got to learn sales. I got to do all this. Then I got to learn retention. So their notes is essentially right. I got to learn these 3 things. And then when it gets to the sell at the end of it, it's just like, well, my course covers these 3 things here, so buy this course here. So it's a really, really good sales pitch from that side of things there. And it's not just free content. A lot of people might run a webinar and give away free content, and then their audience will be like, "Oh, that's great. No, I'm not going to buy a thing. Let me implement this free stuff, and then I'll come back to you." Yeah. Whereas this here doesn't quite get that. And then same now with Course Creator Community, because it's just kind of like the next step. With the Fitness Education Online one, I don't sort of mention, hey, now I make $1 million a year selling online courses. It kind of, stops at the point, which is, hey, here's how you get really successful at running a boot camp. Here's how I was able to do it. Here's all these testimonials from other people that have done the exact same system there. And I stop it at kind of that point there. If it's the Course Creator Community side of things, I yada yada a bit through the fitness side of stuff because I don't really care about that. But then I really get on so, here's how I make it. This is how I made $1 million worth of courses. I had this thing, and then I had this one, and then I expand that side of things there, where it's like, then I had this one course, and here's how I got this one course to be $1 million over that side there. And I'm sure I'll probably expand it in future, right? Whatever I do next, it's, I'll probably end up teaching course. I'll probably end up people that teach other people how to do course stuff. I'll probably end up being their teacher, right? It's like you teach other people how to create a course, you say you sell that, and then I'll probably share that story there. So that's in a nutshell, everywhere I go. Podcasts, speaking events, not so much Facebook Lives actually, because and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but it got to the point where I'm like, man, I just feel like I'm saying this again and again to the same audience, right? Yeah. I like it to new audiences, to podcasts, speaking events, that sort of thing there. But webinars is the main one.
You're spot on with that. The Facebook Live piece, it's like when you think about your story, right? You got to have your very short, quick context. Here's what I do, right? I teach people this, and then you go into it because you don't really have attention spans, right? In the Facebook Live, it's a mostly audience that's familiar. You don't need that repeat. Yeah. But I do think one of the things that comes to mind for me is, so with the signature story, where a lot of people fall down is they have this, and you tell me if you see this to happen too, and maybe this is actually what was happening to you before. A lot of people feel this need to showcase, look how experienced I am. I actually know what I'm doing. I have experience doing this thing. And they go into a long story proving that they are the expert, because quite frankly, a lot of people that I work with, they're very sick of the people online who started their business on Instagram yesterday, and they really don't have any business experience, but somehow know how to make really pretty graphics and make it look like they know what they're doing. My person has experience, and they want to tell that experience, which comes out in a very long story. And your story is not short. It's not long. It's not short, but it's rich. And there's a reason for it. And it wasn't a laundry list of look at all my experience, although it had it in there. Can you talk about, I'm sure that's something that you did in that workshop, was the difference between here's my work history and here's my signature story.
Yeah. Okay. So 100%. I used to be like that. It was just like, let me try and show experience, also smart. Let me show people how smart I am. Here's my qualifications, here's my experience, all that sort of stuff there. How did I? So for me, it was a little bit more about the vulnerability side of things. It was kind of, I used to think that if I told people that I was bad, they'd think I was bad, right? But then I sort of realized it's okay as long as you got better, right? If I stayed at 75, then I would be a douche. If I'm like, hey, I'm 75.
Would have been a terrible ending.
Exactly, But it's okay to say you used to struggle. In my opinion, I think it's okay to say, it's better to say you used to struggle as long as you've overcome that struggle there. Because I think that's the powerful side of things, is the journey. Like if you look at someone and they're like, oh, Heather, she's always been successful. It's been easy for her. I could never be Heather. It's less relatable. But if you can start with that vulnerable side of things, it's a lot more relatable. It's like, all right, cool. Jono was worse than me. If Jono was down there and worse than me and he can do it, then it's okay. And then similar, that original My Story video that I had to post on Facebook, it was the same sort of thing. That was about, I think it was about friends and networking, to be honest. It's kind of like, look, I used to not have a big friend network. I used to not have many people that I would speak to, and I wouldn't be able to be myself, and, I'd have to be someone else, and it got depressing, blah, 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 blah. But now I'm really confident about what I do because I've got a really supportive network, and I know they're going to love me no matter what. So, if you're watching this and, you feel like people don't understand you and have to be yourself, look, I'm here, feel free to reach out or something like that. And it was kind of like, it made it more powerful to say that I was worse at the start. If I just went out there and said, hey, if you need someone to talk to, I'm here. Or if you need someone to talk to, I'm a really good friend because of bang, 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 bang. Without that sort of beginning vulnerable side of it, it's just not as powerful of a story. That's how I look at that.
I agree 100%. I call this, when I teach Signature Story, I call this the relatable struggle. It's not for just the sake of being, oh, woe is me, I'm vulnerable. It has to be a relatable struggle. And I'll just give this as a little bonus thing for anyone listening. In listening to Jono's story, one of the things to think about, right? You may have never found yourself as a fitness instructor. You may never clipping the little carpets with scissors. Nice detail, by the way. Those things, you don't relate with that, but you relate on the feeling of that, of getting starting with something new, being excited about a new dream job, realizing that, holy crap, I'm not actually qualified, but I think I can do it. The relatable story of aspiration and struggle, I think what a lot of people miss, I hear a lot of times from people that they have their ideal person they serve, but their path to what they do now isn't actually what their current person's path is. So they don't feel like it's relatable. So they don't know how to tell that story. And what you have to ask yourself is, what emotions is your person having right now in their struggle? And when is a time that you struggled and you also felt those things of imposter syndrome, as the, I don't deserve to be here, or I don't know what the heck I'm doing, or I've tried everything and it's just not working. You have to find the shared vulnerability, that shared moment, that relatable struggle. Because if you do not start there, it doesn't matter how smart you are or how great your solution is, there's an amount of trust that just isn't instilled in your ideal person.
I'll piggyback off. I was going to say, and also even just from a teaching side of things, right? From a course creator and a teaching side of things, that's also the best way to teach. Someone talks about this, I'm not sure if it's Tony Robbins or Russell Brunson or one of those people, where it's essentially like, if you're a good teacher, you'll be able to get someone to understand something based on their experience, right? If I'm telling a story and I'm just, spitting out facts and Tony Robbins is a really good example. He's something about pipes, where he's like, all right, if someone's really good at pipes and Heather's got no idea about what pipes are, and Tony Robbins trying to teach Heather about pipes, here's what pipes are, and he's using all the technical terms. Heather's going to go over her head. She's not going to learn it. She's not going to be engaged. But if he can explain it in something that Heather knows. So Heather, pipes, they're kind of like public speaking. You know how when you do public speaking and, if you're not confident, there's a block and you can't get any further there. That's what this term is in a pipe. And if you can get that if you can relate a pipe to public speaking, you're a good communicator, you're a good teacher there. And I think it's a similar message to what you were sharing there, right?
Yeah. Well, and if you think about it, everyone who listens to the show, they know I use analogies for this exact
Yes.
purpose all of the time.
Yes, that's
And
the
it's
word I
the
was looking for.
diffuse, like, or metaphors or analogies, whatever we want to
Yeah.
call it. But it's the how do you diffuse what you're talking about? It's almost translate it into an intermediate language between you and your audience, not knowing exactly what your audience is, especially if you're talking to digital audiences, right?
Yeah.
You have this avatar that you're speaking to, but you don't actually really know who's listening or watching. So what we have to do is we have to think about what are those commonalities that we can distill our message into, whether it's metaphors, we have to think about what's the shared emotion that people have in the human journey. Is those kinds of things. And I just, your story does a really beautiful job of this, right? Where you have the relatable struggle, even though people listening maybe don't have the fitness center, right? But then it's and then it moves into okay, so how do we identify the solution? But there has to be one of the things he really did well is a really good signature story focuses in on a moment in time. This is a really important recipe or ingredient in a signature story. So there has to be a moment in time. It just can't be talking about the series of a decade or over my career. It has to be about a moment. And your moment was at that conference where they shuck you and said, you're the worst, you're literally the worst with a pie graph. So I think you did that piece really well. There's a lot of elements that go into a signature story, but the point of this episode today is that it takes some time, right, to get it right. But there's also intention behind it and then strategic use for it in your business.
Yeah. 100%. And look, I'm sure there could be other ways. Maybe I could be a paid speaker or whatever, but I'm not at that stage yet, So it's like, I got this story? Great. How can I monetize it and get these tens of thousands of dollars back that I've spent on, on education and learning how to do this stuff?
Yeah. Okay. I love it. And for anyone listening who's thinking like, okay, how do we dive in this a little bit more? I will link to the episode where I talk about some of the elements that are required in a signature story. So if you want to binge on that a little bit more, I'm sure I'll do some more episodes coming up specifically on signature stories, but we'll link to that. Jono, I want to do something new we're doing here on the show is lightning round where I fire some questions at you as a guest. This. So are you ready for it?
Yeah, like the Jimmy Kimmel or Ellen show or something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, let's do it. So these aren't very random as much as theirs are, but mostly speaking related.
Just quick, Heather, is there, on Ellen and Jimmy Kimmel, they've got a time limit? Like I need to answer in 5 seconds or I get fined?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay, cool. Right.
So I'm curious, when you think back on your career, where's your favorite place that you have spoken, like delivered your message or your story?
Yes, good question. I'm going to say New Zealand, Christchurch, because I was actually the keynote speaker there, believe it or not. And that I should craft a signature story about this. It's like one of the biggest things that helped in my success journey when I was, back in 75 is I traveled to New Zealand to attend the New Zealand Fitness Convention. Because I thought, you know what, if I just go to the Australian one, all my competitors are going to be here. If I go to the New Zealand one, even though they're usually worse than us at everything New Zealand, including cricket, rugby, and soccer for any New Zealand people listening, I might learn some things from them over there. So I went over there, learned a heaps. And then within 2 years, I was the keynote speaker at that same thing. So that was huge for me.
That's incredible. Congratulations to you. That memory sounds pretty incredible. When was the last time you experienced nerves or jitter when you had to speak to a group?
Probably just before you started this Q&A thing just here. I was nervous to hear what the questions were. So so let me think. It's hard because I haven't spoken in person with COVID for years, but it was no, you know what? There was one time. Yeah. Okay, cool. So it was a Zoom presentation. And I was speaking about Facebook ads, and I've only run Facebook ads for personal trainers, fitness trainers, right? But the people that wanted me to give the presentation, they're a bit more, and also face-to-face personal trainers is who I would run Facebook ads. And amazing job at that. And there's one of my friends runs a business, but it's more about health coaching. So it's less about, hey, go to the gym or go to the boot camp or go and train with this trainer. And it's more, here's different ideas. If you want nutrition, mindset, all that sort of stuff there. And they're usually more educated as well. They're usually university degrees and that sort of thing there. I was a little bit nervous on that. I'm like, okay, I know the personal trainer market quite well. I know every question they ask. And also I'm confident that whatever they've done, I've already done that in that space, but I haven't done it in this space over here as well. So I was a little bit nervous there.
Yeah. Is that, so nerves is no longer a thing for you in general when you speak?
Nah. Speaking, no. I could just, nah.
I'm always fascinated by it. I'm always fascinated by it. You asked me this question on your show, so I'm going to throw it back at you. What books or podcasts are you super into right now?
Ooh, okay. So podcast, not so much a podcast person because I do so much research. Most of my time podcasting is just seeing who the other podcasters are, seeing who they get on there. So there's not like one that I listen to just for education. Books. At the moment, I've just read like a heap of autobiographies because I've read heaps of, personal development sort of stuff. And it got to a point I'm like, man, I'm sick of people telling me what to do. I want to hear what other successful people have done. So I've read, I've read a heap of them. Not all of them are great though. So I read Mandela, Obama, Kevin Hart, Trevor Noah, Mike Tyson. I know the one, the jiu-jitsu guy, Rickson Gracie. So I'm not sure. Do you watch UFC jiu-jitsu at all, Heather? You look like a fighter.
That's not really my jam.
Okay, I was going to say you look like you're into it, so that's surprising. I mean,
clearly I would be the person hosting all the parties for the UFC. No.
Exactly. No. So Rickson Gracie's book Breed. He's the best jiu-jitsu person in the history of the world.
Yeah. I do like to say random, is very random. My oldest sister, she's 12 years older than me. She used to do, I think she probably still does, Krav Maga. She used to compete in these like competitions. And I remember, I don't know if this is actually true, but I made it up when I was younger. It's like my sister is an underground street fighter.
Yeah. That's badass. Did you?
So that's my only thing.
So okay, she could kick your ass when she was like 4, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, she's like 6'3". My sister is I have a very tall family. Anyways, yeah, my sister would kick anyone's ass for me if needed. Okay. Last question before we wrap up to the final real question. What's something a little weird about you that people would be surprised about?
A little weird or a lot weird?
Both. My weird thing is my favorite food in the world is peanut butter and pickle sandwiches, which evidently people think that's very strange. I think it's delicious. But what's your weird thing?
Okay, so I'm the biggest fan of WCW wrestling from the 1990s in the world. I subscribe to the WWE network. It's $10 a month, and I still watch some old Nitro videos. So if anyone here is a wrestling fan, they'll know. Were you a wrestling fan at all, Heather?
No, still not.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll even add on that. So
are you surprised by my answers to your questions?
Yeah, I'm surprised you're not a wrestler and a MMA fighter. And looking at you. Oh my gosh,
this might be my favorite random conversation I've ever had on the podcast.
Yeah. I was going to
wrap it up. I want to respect your time, so let's land the plane on this. I love learning more about businesses and just hearing more about your story around your journey of being able to come from that moment of like literally bottom of the pack and then put your own plan around, right? And learning from other people to figure out how to perform and then go on to teach others. And now you're teaching others another way. I'm just really inspired about what you're doing. I think it's phenomenal. Can you give, let's actually go, where can people learn more? I mentioned your Facebook group, of course, but where's the best place for people to go to learn more about the course creator community?
Yes. So just type, I'm not Mr. Creative. That's where you and me are probably different, right? So just type Course Creator Community into Facebook and the group will come up, or even just type that anywhere on social media. Type in Jono Petrohilos or Course Creator Community, and it's don't have any fancy names or anything. It's just type that in social and you'll find me.
Perfect. And I'll link to it all in the show notes. Not only do you guys have great content in your Facebook group, which I highly recommend anyone listening, make sure you join, introduce yourself. You'll be very welcome in the group. And then also your Instagram, you guys do a really great job of sharing really good informative content and some really great free resources for people wanting to climb into the digital course space. So I love that. As we wrap it up today, John, any other just words of advice you would leave course creators with, coaches that are listening today that are just excited about the future of the online space? Like, what are you excited about in the future, and what advice do you have?
So I'm just always excited to grow and keep learning. And just the advice I would have for everyone is probably mentor, actually. It's like there's so much stuff going on there, and it's very easy to see other people successful and doing and it can be easy to be successful if you know the pathway, right? If you don't know the pathway and you just try and do it on your own, it can be very easy to get disappointed. So I reckon, find some sort of mentor, even if it's not, we've spoken, pay $5,000. It doesn't have to be that. Find someone even just a little bit in front of you, a membership site, a business coach, a course, a Udemy thing, whatever it may be, find something and just get some sort of pathway.
I love it. Great, great advice. I think that piece is, you don't have to do it alone. There are all resources at all different levels to be able to help you develop your skills as a digital course creator and as an entrepreneur. So I love it. Thank you so much for your time on your Saturday morning, right? I really appreciate it. Thanks for being here, Jono. And for those of you listening, be sure to take a screenshot of this episode and share it. Let's give him some love. You can tag at the Course Creator Community on Instagram. I don't remember the handle, but I'll put it right under this description. Y'all grab it, and we will see you next week, same time, same place.